Hello and welcome to Frost Over the World. Later in the programme, the very first openly gay bishop takes on a woman priest who insists he has no place in the church on the subject of gay marriage, same-sex marriage, and the accompanying issues. Plus there's Gary Lightbody, the lead singer, of course, of Snow Patrol, and the most senior woman politician in the Arab world. But we begin with foreign policy, the foreign policy of the whole world. It was the expertise of the UK's longest-serving foreign minister under the last government, David Miliband, and when that government fell, many observers expected David to become Labour Party leader. Instead, of course, the job went very close to home to his brother, Ed. So what does David think of the world today, at a time he calls the decade of disorder? David, welcome.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. Don't
know which trouble spot or what to start with first, but on Afghanistan, you said this week, quote, or you were quoted as saying, the time has come to talk to the Taliban. How could we do that? Because in a way we were talking, or the Americans were talking to the Taliban, and then the Taliban said no more talks because the Americans are so vague.
Not just the Taliban. All the ethnic peoples of Afghanistan need to be in the political settlement, and to get any kind of credible talks going, you need, in my view, an independent, UN-backed mediator. We need someone who all sides can talk to, West, insurgents, Afghan government, and get their demands on the table, because at the moment we are moving towards the end date of combat from foreign forces, 2014, without an end strategy, and that is a really dangerous situation.
And should the end date hold even if things are bad?
Well, it's moving.
If things are worse.
You can see it moving, and the only way to make it hold is to develop a political settlement. Every person in the military in Afghanistan will tell you there is not a military solution. There never is in a counterinsurgency. There's only a political solution. It's the political solution, all the tribes in, Al-Qaeda out, the neighbours respecting the independence of Afghanistan and knowing it's not going to be a client state of any neighbour. That is the only road to a political settlement that can make a military withdrawal, which after all we want and the Taliban want, possible.
Right. But what happens if the withdrawal goes wrong? Could we go back?
I don't see that as being a possible option. The difference that's being made is one which I think is real, because foreign troops are helping Afghan troops hold security, but that must stick in the gullet of the Afghan mothers and fathers who've seen their children killed in this dreadful incident just recently. It must stick in the gullet of the fathers and mothers of the Western soldiers who have the guns turned on them by the Afghans that they're training. So I think we are in a situation where the urgency of a political process grows by the day.
The danger grows by the day.
And the urgency for it
grows by the day. But the danger, I mean, are the Taliban stronger than they were a month ago? I mean, which way is it going?
Well, they are suffering tactical reversals on the battlefield, but you know so well that in an insurgency, you can squeeze one part of the operation, but it will pop up somewhere else. And so part of Helmand province looks safer, but the trouble will spring up in Oruzgan or in Kandahar or even in the north of the country. And the cancer spreads because the sense grows that foreign forces are an occupying army, not a liberating army, and that is the danger the longer this goes on.
Was the Labour policy on this subject correct or over-optimistic?
I think it was right to say that the Taliban's governance of Afghanistan pre-2001 that provided the cover for Al-Qaeda planning was wrong and dangerous, and they needed to be toppled. But from an early date, I've said very publicly, we needed the vanquished in the political settlement, and we needed them to be part of a political settlement. You can't just construct a peace conference of the victors, and that's what happened in Bonn in 2001 too.
Yeah. What is the initiative that should be started now?
I think we need a UN mediator starting now.
As you said, someone like Kofi Annan? I mean,
well,
he's busy,
it needs to be, I think, someone from the Muslim world.
Right.
Lakhdar Brahimi played this role, former Algerian foreign minister, very distinguished. He played that role in 2001 too. You need someone drawn from the Muslim world. Second, we need on the table, for starters, some measures for each side to show their commitment to the process. I've said that the key deal to be done to build any confidence in a talks process is an end to night raids from foreign forces and an end to roadside bombs from the insurgency. Province by province, we need that to get going. Thirdly, and absolutely critically, we need a regional process. I call it a council of regional stability. All the neighbours, including Pakistan, but not only Pakistan, part of a structured process that says we will respect the independence of Afghanistan, we will not seek to create a client state, nor will we seek to destabilise other neighbours through our actions in Afghanistan.
Moving on then to the subject of Syria, the tragic subject of Syria. You said this quote about the need for international unity as a prerequisite to any action with regards to the Syria question. Is that possible or unrealistic?
Well, I think it's necessary.
Yeah.
And what I'm speaking to is the obvious point that while Russia on one side with Chinese support and Western countries with Arab League support on the other cannot agree on a process both of pressure and incentives for the Assad regime, they're going to carry on killing. Just latest news this week, 32 people killed on Wednesday, civilians in Syria. So the killing is going on, if at a lower tempo than in the worst days of February. But I see the disunity of the international coalition, the disunity of the Syrian opposition, as licensing or giving space for the Assad regime to carry on killing.
Moscow seems to have softened its message and started to say something that sounds more in tune with the rest of the world. But why did Russia opt for the line it took of, in a sense, protecting the killing, protecting the Syrian position?
I think,
not necessary today, but just for the last few weeks.
I think that they're trying to protect their equities and protect their interests. They would say also that the alternative to an Assad regime needs to be properly structured and thought through, and if there's going to be a cross-denominational, Syrian transitional government to some kind of different constitutional setup, it needs to be properly organised. And they have great fear, they would say, of chaos. Now, when the alternative to chaos is actually killing, state-sanctioned killing, you've got to find a better way. And I think that's the message that needs to go out to the Russians very, very strongly. I don't myself see getting into an arms race with the Syrian authorities, arming the opposition so that they can better take on the Syrian authorities. I see that as playing into Assad's hands.
Because it just continues the war.
Because he controls a military machine, he's got a military army there, he's got the ability to take on the insurgency with brutality that he's learnt from his father and from others in the regime. Now, I think there is a possibility that if you could get the Russians back on board and say to them, look, Assad himself has become a source of instability in Syria and in the wider region, you might be able to bridge the gap that exists at the moment between the Arab League resolution at the UN that Russia vetoed and the resolution that it says it would support, which talks about a transitional government in Syria. That's the key.
And you've said too, talking about the case for humanitarian intervention and so on in Syria, you've said we've got to have unity, we've got to have international community linked, unanimous, before we can do that. Others would say we didn't wait for the whole international community to agree before we moved into Iraq or things like that. Why the difference?
I mean, I think, to be fair, a better challenge to my position would be, look, Kosovo, late 90s.
Yes.
The Iraq thing, there were a lot of resolutions, we can go back over all that, but in Kosovo you can say, look, there wasn't UN sanction in Kosovo, why are you putting such emphasis on it in the Syrian case? I think the reason is twofold. First of all, it's a very different case, the Syrian case, with much more explosive potential for a very, very dangerous part of the world. I mean, the Balkans were bad enough for the citizens of the Balkans. The danger of conflagration in the Middle East, I don't need to remind you of. Secondly, I think the legitimacy of the action in the eyes of the Muslim world requires that kind of UN cover.
Right. And as someone said today, has Britain opted out of her responsibility to protect civilians under attack?
I don't think that's fair. I think that the world stands under question for what it's doing to protect the citizens of Syria. Now, there were some absolutely poignant words from Marie Colvin, the Sunday Times journalist targeted and killed in Homs, who said, who's going to stand up for the citizens who I see, the civilians who I see around me? And I think that's the moral and humanitarian case that goes side by side with a case that says Assad is now a source of instability in his own country. Now, he's leaching support slowly, I would say, but the opposition is not gaining support because of its fragmentation. And so you've got this gap which needs to be filled, I think, by international engagement.
And you use the word leech as a verb there, which is very refreshing. I've never heard that before. Brand new. Tell me something on the Arab Spring. Was something learned from the Arab Spring?
Well, I think it's not over. I mean, the spring, people talk about a spring becoming a summer and a winter, but it's not over. I think something very, very profound has happened, which is that the bar for the exercise, the accountable exercise of legitimate power has been raised. Whether you're a democracy or an autocracy, the bar for the legitimate exercise of power has been raised, and citizens are not willing to put up with kleptocracy, corruption, inefficiency. That was the hallmark of the Mubarak regime and of others. Now, I think that is a profound change. It speaks to the democratizing wave, the opening up, to use the Chinese way of thinking about it, the opening up that is going on around the world. And it doesn't mean every country is going to become a Western-style democracy. But it does mean that a more open society with more educated citizens are going to be more demanding of their governments. And you're seeing that all over the world. You're seeing that in Russia as well as in the Middle East.
Yeah, absolutely. Iran. We read in one paper that the threat of Iran is greater and so on. That might be an Israeli paper. But we see in other places the fact that it seems to be settling down the anguish of the Iranians at their lack of total power over the atomic future of the world. That seems to have quietened down a bit.
Well, I was very...
Do you find it...
I was very concerned. In December, I thought we were sleepwalking into a war with Iran. By February, the drumbeat of war was very loud, and I thought that was very wrong. Now, I think that President Obama and his team have played a very skillful and bold hand, actually, because what they've done is change the game. They've said, look, the issue isn't whether or not Israel strikes. We think that would be wrong for them to do that. We'll take the responsibility, President Obama has said, of saying that if the Iranians get a weapon, we will take care of it.
Right.
But we're absolutely determined to make sure that we get a diplomatic solution. And the question has therefore changed from will the Israelis be given American sanction to strike, which they won't, to what are the terms on which the Iranians will settle. And I think you're beginning to see those terms of trade change. You're seeing various of the factions in Iran speaking up about the way in which a diplomatic solution may be found. We can't be naive about this. I mean, there's a long-standing Iranian game playing. But I think there is the prospect that the Iranians will realize a diplomatic resolution is in their interest as well as in ours.
What would they accept as a diplomatic outcome?
The most important thing is that they don't feel humiliated. You know well that the history of Iran is that they will never accept humiliation. If we expect them to accept humiliation, we'll never succeed. If we can construct a basis on which we recognize that in a transparent situation, they say they're willing to accept that civilian nuclear power is an option for them, as long as there's absolutely no doubt that it isn't flowing into a military program or leaching into a military program to make sure that that hasn't happened, then you can construct a non-humiliating route forward, both for Iran and a safer route forward for the rest of us.
Looking ahead, David, who would you like to be the next Labour Prime Minister?
Oh,
Brother Ed or
Ed,
you?
Of course. No, Brother Ed, of course. He's the elected leader of the Labour Party, so of course I want him to be the next Labour Prime Minister.
Really?
Of course.
What about the next Prime Minister but one?
I think Labour's history suggests that we find it tough to win one election. Let's win the next one.
Yes.
If we can emulate our position in the 90s, let's win 3 in a row. But I think that let's just stick for the next one, I think.
Thank you, David.
Thank you very much.
Very good as ever to see you.
Nice to be here.
Thank you. Just over a year ago, the Tunisian revolution triggered the revolts that came a bit later across the Arab world. The Tunisian people were the first to unseat one of the region's long-standing dictators. Last October, Tunisia held internationally recognized elections, and a coalition government of Islamists and secularists was formed. So, has democracy truly taken root in Tunisia? Now that they have freedom can the Tunisian people have stability and will the country prosper? Joining me now is a woman who holds the highest political office across the Arab world for a woman. Mehed Zia is the Deputy Speaker of the Tunisian Parliament, and she's a member of the Ennahda party. Mehed Zia, welcome. Very, very good to have you with us.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Thank you. Would you say that the revolution is a success 1 year later? It has been a success? It has done better than people thought, or not quite as well as people thought?
Mm-hmm. Of course, our people's expectations are very high, so we can never do as better as they expect us to do. Yet I think that we have realized a great deal of success, and establishing legitimacy on the level of the Constituent Assembly, then the presidency of the Republic and the government. It's the first time that we have such legitimate and elected institutions. So for me, this is an achievement, this is a success. And also having a majority, a coalition from secular and Islamic reference party, my party Ennahda, governing, for me this is a success, bringing all these different people to work together.
Yeah.
And also having a majority in an opposition. And everybody can speak and can return back home and sleep safely without being arrested or annoyed for his opinions. This is a success because we are, it's our first year democracy.
And that's very clear. Would in fact, as we go ahead, would you say that the Islamist element or the secular element will it be half and half, equal, or will one, do you think, predominate, the Islamist point of view or the secularist point of view?
Not really. It's not a matter of domination.
Right.
It's a matter of interaction. And I think and I work in towards this end, that it's the Tunisian way of thinking Islam, of thinking secularism, is the winner. So for me, it's an interaction between these different elements nowadays in Tunisia, and it's not a question of dominating one side, dominating the other.
And the big challenge, the big problem, and it hasn't really improved in the last year, has it, is the economy? Yes, that's Tunisia's big headache.
Yes, this is the big challenge, this is the big issue. But in a post-revolutionary country, I think we cannot expect economy to recover rapidly. And our people are quite realistic. What they expect is that the government takes measures to make a step forward towards recovery and to see signs of this recovery.
And in terms of the lives of people in Tunis and in Tunisia, I mean, have their lives changed? Can they feel the freedom?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I think freedom, I said yesterday that there's an euphoria of freedom. Yeah. People are maybe protesting a lot, expressing themselves a lot, demonstrating, writing, in different way they express their freedom. And I think this is really very healthy for our society. We need to live or to experience this wave of freedom, but also we need to learn how to debate with each other, how to discuss, to have difference, and yet recognize what are our interests and common interests and shared concern as Tunisian. We are learning.
Right. Yes. And what would you like to happen to the last president, President Ben Ali? I mean, he's now in hiding or away from the world anyway in Saudi Arabia at the moment. Would you like to have him brought back to Tunisia to face trial for what he did, or whether it was the money that disappeared or whatever else? What would you like to have? Or do you think it's okay if he lives freely in Saudi Arabia and never faces?
I shall say that our people, our constituents, the people who sent us to the assembly, still claim justice, and they want just trial for him, and it's the matter now of the justice to bring him back. It's not only a matter of we are mobilizing our forces also to build our democracy.
Yes.
But we let the justice in our country follow this target, this objective, in respect of the law, in respect of diplomatic relations too. We have good relations with Saudi Arabia and we want to keep them. Yet we have to say that our people want back this man who made a lot of harm to Tunisian people, not only through thieving or stealing their wealth, but also all the suffering, the torture, the unjust political trial, etc.
So would there be a case for having a, like for instance happened in South Africa when President Mandela took office and so on, a truth and reconciliation sort of commission where people can come and confess what they did in the last?
Yes, we have launched a process of what we call transitional justice.
Ah, yes.
And we have even a Ministry of Transitional Justice and Human Rights. The minister is Mr. Samir Dilu. He's from Nahda Party. But within the Constituent Assembly, we have created an ad hoc commission or special commission called the Commission of Revolution Martyrs, Injured Person, and all the victims of despotism and injustice during the dictatorship era. And of course, one of the mechanisms, or one of the through which this commission will work, is listening, hearing people who suffered, victims of torture, victim of imprisonment, but also listening and hearing the people who have served in the last governments and lesser.
Incredibly to the point and clear what you were saying. It was a joy, real joy to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you too, and it's really my pleasure and my honor to be interviewed by you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
In a moment, a change of mood. The lead singer of the hugely popular group Snow Patrol, Gary Lightbody. That's after this, we promise you, very short break.